Today's conversation is an invitation to rest from striving. My guest is a therapist and personal life coach who works from an understanding of mental well being that doesn't focus on techniques or strategies, but on how our experience of life is actually created. She works from an understanding of mental well being that points to an innate intelligence beneath our experience. Together, we'll explore what happens when we stop trying to fix ourselves and begin to recognize the natural order of well being that's already present. Thanks for joining us today, Quinn Cashion. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the invitation. I uh,
Yes.
I love the idea of harmony and having that conversation around that. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome, awesome. We are so happy to have you here today. So, I would just love to start off by learning more about what led you into your current work
Mhm.
format. From what I understand, you're going from therapy into more of a coaching format. Is that correct?
I am, yes. Yeah, and there's such a fine line between the two services because it's looking at innate mental health in my work. And so it really goes into looking at how the human mind operates. And I love doing that. And so part of that is, how we see the world and then how we're going to create in the world. And so that's the kind of work that I've been doing for about 20 years now.
Nice, nice. So you have a nice long history of seeing how things have changed and evolved and how we've gotten better understanding of the mind and how it works and how it relates to other things over the years, then I would assume, correct?
Well, yeah, when I went into school to become a counselor, there's all these theories that you get to learn, and a lot of counselors have different modalities that they work from. And, something was not resonating with me until a dear friend of mine, who is also a counselor, started talking to me about some principles of mental well being. And it just clicked. It was just like, wow, that is going underneath absolutely everything that other theories are talking about. And I just love that approach.
Nice, nice. So I'm really, really interested in getting into those principles of well-being. So would you
Yeah.
like to break those down and share some of that with us?
Well, I love metaphors because when it comes to our mental life, it's very abstract. So it's like, how do we make sense of it? It's like somebody says, well, it's important to feel more at peace. Well, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And so helping them understand how the operating system works behind all of that really supports getting back into that state of well-being and the state of peace. So the principles that I play with is called Tea. And because I think of a cup of tea and how warm and nourishing that can be, and any time of the day when you're feeling stressed out or overwhelmed, I just feel like holding my cup of tea in my hands for a little bit. So T is for thought. Now, this is a very different or a unique way of looking at thought because most traditional approaches look at thought from a cognitive perspective. So, mindset, fixed mindset, open mindset, negative thinking, positive thinking. And I want to go underneath all of that and look at the power of thought. Like it is so powerful when you start to think about it. I can have a thought in any moment. Everything I'm saying is coming from a thought I'm thinking. It's like so powerful. I can have a moment where somebody's doing something and I can either get angry or I can respond to it with humility or wisdom or common sense. So we have this ability as humans to be able to kind of ebb and flow with our thoughts. So want to talk more about the power and the nature of thought versus the content of thought. The second principle is E, which is energy. We are life force energy. We have a heart that, you know, beats in our chest, but if there's no energy behind it, it doesn't beat anymore. So, we're made up with energy. And so looking at how do we tap into that energy to fuel our thinking or our thought, and also looking at the last principle, which is A, which is awareness. So when we put those three together, we have more of an ability to be in alignment with who we are at our core. And at our core is pure love. It is resilience. It's joy. It's harmony. So all those human qualities that's already been designed within us is already there. But what keeps us stuck is that personal thinking mind, the chatter monkeys that kind of get in the way. Some people call it, on computers, all these tabs that are open. So when our minds are so busy all the time, we forget about how to stay in alignment. So tea helps.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, that when our minds are busy, it's hard to stay in alignment. Because definitely we're trying to actively think about and form and process and do all of these things, but we forget about being. That's the one that I always like to remind people. We're human beings, not human doings. So
Yeah.
definitely that awareness and being able to just live into the moment. So I love this. T, thought, energy, and awareness. And how
Mhm.
did you come about understanding this way of looking at the mind?
Well, there's a man actually from Canada, Sid Banks, who came up with principles to help us understand how we see the world. And what was beautiful about it was that he was not in psychology whatsoever. And it just, his journey and his experience just brought him into these principles that really resonated with so many people because the current mental health field looks at people as broken and they need to be fixed. We need to give them another strategy, another tool. And this understanding really helps us see that we're not broken and we don't need to be fixed. We need to tap back into the core of who we are. And that is the resilience, that is the well being, that is the peace, that is the ease. So when we get into the personal thinking mind, we go into dis-ease, discomfort. And when we tap into that core of who we are, life is easier, regardless of what's happening in the outside world, because there's a lot going on these days. And so the more we can view the outside world from a grounded center, then we're able to see it with a little bit gentler eyes, I guess, be a way of putting it.
Nice. So you said you've been doing this work for 20 years. So did you discover Sid Banks then, or is it more of a
I
recent?
did. Yeah, I did.
Nice.
I did.
Mhm.
And I still remember, I mean, I remember my friend June was talking to me about this. And it's like, yeah, it makes sense. But, because we intellectualize everything. We put everything into this brain power, and that's kind of where it stays. And the principles are really about dropping into a greater resource that we have on the inside. So it's about a feeling, it's we know when we're in alignment or in harmony because it feels good. It feels really good. And sometimes you drop into it and it's like, whoa, I got to do something that feels uncomfortable. But there's a deep knowing that that's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
So so that was the gift in it because it took us away from the intellect for a little while and helped us experience the essence of who we are in a different way.
Nice, nice. And I just want to go back to what you were saying also about fixing and how the mental health world sees things as broken. And I always think that it's interesting that we like to give, pills, but we look at people and we say, oh, you have a serotonin or a dopamine problem or something. But it's like, we don't have a deficiency in the pills that they're giving or the medications that they're giving. So I don't understand. It's kind of a mismatch to me. Stay more on the health side of the world. So, of course, I help people through improving their health and therefore improving their mindset because their brain's able to work a little better. But also, like you said, it's not that it's broken, it's just that things aren't in alignment. Like you were saying, like you're not. processing things in a way that could make you realize all the goodness and all of the things that are there because you're just kind of stuck in your own. Like sometimes I think of it like those little comic strips where you see like the cat and the dog and they're all fighting and it's just all
Yeah,
this black,
yeah.
it's just all jumbled up. Like that's going on in our heads sometimes. It's like we just got to separate everything and calm it down and slow it down and take some time. Is that kind of how the process unravels or works, or how would you
Yeah.
describe it?
Yeah, and I don't describe it as a process because, if I go and sit at the beach and go and watch a sunset, I just naturally drop in. I just, wow. Like I remember one time I was going to a dinner party and I'm driving down the road and it was right beside the beach and it was right at sunset. And it was spectacular. Like I've never seen the sky so incredible. Like it was just the oranges were so vibrant. And I just, instead of turning right, I turned left. And I just took an extra 15 minutes just to sit at that beach and watch that sunset, and it just filled me right up. So it wasn't something I had to process. It was just, I was in the moment. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us, that we forget about staying in present moment. We're either in the past or in the future. I got to get to that dinner party. It's like I'm already 5 minutes late, and it's like, but instead of it's like, whoa, there's some beauty there that I'm just gonna drink in for a little bit. So when we allow ourselves to stay in present moment, we can pick up on these little things in our day that, it's like, wow, I never saw that before. Or like, okay, this is kind of silly, but I had a bird fly into my window the other day. He's fine, he flew away, but he left his mark. And so it's like the body and then the wings, like it's just imprinted on my window. And I thought, wow, that is so cool. I could have easily washed it off quite quickly, but it was something about the spirit of that bird, that wanted to connect somehow. And so it's just finding those little subtle moments in your day, because I think that takes us out of here. It takes us out of analyzing and processing, and I got to fix it, and I've got this challenge to work through. And, this is the smallest part of our body, everything kind of goes out this way. And so if we bring it into the body more and start to experience it more, so three brains, intellect, computer, data bank, processing, analyzing. Heart is, love and understanding. We want to drop into this nice feeling. And then our gut, which is coming online quite a lot in a lot of conversations, because there's a lot of association with mental health and gut issues. And so people are starting to have those conversations. They're starting to look at, well, can we fix our mental health or improve it by the way we eat and the way we digest food, the way we digest emotion. So there's ways that we can be doing that kind of feeds us. Funny, I'm going to food metaphors right now, but so it does. It's really looking at, we're in alignment of who we are, but we stay here. Like think about breath. I mean, how many times are we even sitting here going, we don't. It's not like we forget, but we have to also think. I have to take a deep breath. I have to have a thought to have a deep breath. And yet when we look at babies, they naturally do it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, definitely. Babies, deep breaths and screaming, but
Yes.
uh,
Well, and that's the
but
beauty of screaming too, is, again, it's the system saying something's off, something's off, something needs, and so emotion is similar to that. So when we are getting into an emotional state, we look at it as bad, where we can look, so if I got angry, it's like, okay, what's it telling me? What's the wisdom behind anger? What's that wisdom behind my sadness? And so when we can look at the truth of that emotion, then it can serve us instead of wanting to drown it. If from medications to addictions to whatever, I don't want to feel that, and so, but it's like, okay, what if we allowed ourselves to feel so it can move through us, and so that it's an easier way to let it go.
Yeah, yeah, that was more of what I was trying to get at. Like how, I guess if you don't call it process, when you're working with someone, like where do you start? How do you get them to be able to
Yeah,
understand what you're saying about dropping in and
yeah,
about feeling through these emotions? Because a lot of times it's somebody that's new for them, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's called insight-based understanding. So, as much as somebody's listening to me right now, it's not my words that is, oh, I got to do that technique, strategy. It's more, oh, I never thought of it that way. Wow, all thought is okay. And it's where I choose to put my energy, right? T. And energy is one of the ingredients. So the energy is, am I going to put more energy into that? Am I going to put more energy into my anger, or am I going to notice my anger and going, okay, behind my anger is my truth, is my wisdom, is my common sense. And, sometimes we need anger because there's injustice and we need to speak up and use our voices. And other times, and that's a truth anger versus an emotional anger that, we lose our bearings. We don't have compassion for the other side. We're not able to hear the other side because we're in an emotional state. And so so that's where we want to sort of be more of the observer and be able to kind of step back and take a moment.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. So basically, you have a conversation with someone and you're kind of sharing the same things you're sharing with us today, and then they come to their own kind of understanding of how to use those things in their own life. Is that what you're saying? Am I getting you right?
Yeah, so they'll start to see how they're seeing the world.
Mm,
And it's seeing the world from the outside, seeing the world from the inside out. But we have a tendency to live life from the outside in. You made me angry. My job is stressing me out. You know, that guy in traffic is, a jerk, So everything outside is dictating how I'm feeling on the inside, is the way we're looking at it right now. And what I'm doing is shifting that paradigm around to say all of those things are still the same, but it's how am I showing up to that? That guy in traffic. Oh, I wonder, boy, he's really driving fast. He just cut me off. I hope he's okay. I hope he's, where he's going is he's going to be safe. Like it's just like we can have a different view. So another way of looking at this is an elevator. So, the elevator of my life, I'm in the penthouse. I could see everything. And I can capture the sunset at night and the sunrise in the morning. I could see what's going on in the world. I could check the weather, and so immense possibility for my day. I could see so much. But if I go down into the basement, it's dark. That's when my mood drops. That's when I get into black and white thinking. That's when I get into judgment. That's when I get into my upset. And everyone's different. We all have a basement and we all use it differently. And so I can't see so clearly then. And so it's recognizing that as a human being, we have this continuum that we're always on with our mental state. And the more we understand the operating system behind it, the more ability we have to stay closer to the penthouse.
mm. I think I like that. I think we like the view from the penthouse, right?
Yes.
Definitely better than the view from the basement.
Yeah.
I believe the last, not the last, but one of my previous guests, we were talking about happiness. And for her, she was talking about how it's a choice. Happiness is, choosing which feeling to have at any given moment, basically. And she was talking about how to find happiness even in some of the most, I guess, other people would see as not so joyous moments, like when a loved one passes away and things like that. Is that something that you would agree with also? Or do you feel more like you said, if a feeling is there, you're supposed to just feel that feeling? But when do you choose to change that feeling to something else instead of wallowing in whatever
Yeah,
it may be?
yeah. Well, and that's the gift in understanding the operating system, because it you have a faith. So, for an example, I wrote a curriculum, a manual on resilience for elementary schools, and one class I went into, grade 4 class, they kept talking about suicide, which I was really interesting to me. I've been into a lot of classrooms, but this one, one little boy, they handed in sheets and he wrote suicide on his page, and then something else came up. So it came up several times in the class, because when it's one off or one child that I, get support and we just make sure everything's okay, but it was coming up. So I don't know if they were testing me. I don't know if it was something happening on the playground and it was on their minds. So I said, let's talk about it. What is suicide? And they had already been learning these principles. And so again, another metaphor. Instead of the penthouse, it's the sun. So I talk about, in working with children, that they have a sun inside of them. And that sun will never, ever be damaged. It will never go anywhere. And that sun encompasses your brilliance, your confidence, your courage, your resilience, like all of those beautiful qualities we have as humans is there. So it doesn't go anywhere. So when we started talking about suicide, I said, okay, let's unpack the word. What does it mean? Like, we have all these words. It's like, okay, what does it mean exactly? You don't respect me. Okay, what does that mean? So it's really unpacking things so we can have a real honest conversation. So they came up with some ideas, and I said, okay, so what's the opposite of one boy said, being perfect. You have to be perfect all the time, so very structured. And I said, well, what if you're not? And then we're not perfect. What does that look like? And so we just played with all these words and we started looking at things. And I said, so somebody who feels suicidal doesn't realize they have a sun, because it's so cloudy thinking is so, like, it's so stormy in their heads that they don't realize they have a sun. So when we truly get to a place, and that's where my work comes in, is helping them see and have so much faith in that sun inside of them, that those cloudy thoughts are okay, because they know they will pass, and they know the sun's going to come back out because it didn't go anywhere.
Mm, that's very beautiful. I love that. I love the
Yeah.
sun and the clouds. That's gonna have to remember that one.
Yeah. Well, when I work with parents, it's like, oh, I should have maybe more mature metaphor, but they really love that too. And it's something that they can then use with their children at home,
Hmm.
And so even with my kids, when they were, 3 and 5 years old, I was talking about the sun and the clouds, and it was a language that they started to understand, that when they got cloudy, they needed to go and take care of themselves. They had to take care of their well-being. And so for some, it might be a timeout. For some, they needed to sit and have a cuddle. So one time, my daughter had to play piano and she was really grumpy and didn't want to do it. So we went out for a walk, and as soon as we came back in, she went right to the piano and started playing. So I didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to process anything. It was just, she was able to let go of the clouds.
Nice, nice. So, well-being, how would you describe what well-being is?
Well, I get, it's a sense of true mental health, in the fact that we we have a nice feeling on the inside. It's a nice feeling.
Gotcha. So, if well-being is a nice feeling on the inside, uh, I know that a lot of people feel like they have to achieve or maintain this well-being. So, from your perspective, where does it actually come from, that
Yeah.
nice feeling?
Yeah. Well, and that's the where we want people to go with their insights is to recognize that life is from the inside out, always. Because as soon as we make it about out there, it's what I achieve, the way I'm dressing, the way I'm, my brand, all of that stuff is lovely. But if it's coming at a cost of your inner peace, then something is off, right? So we want to bring it back into alignment. And so we'll know when we're off because our thinking tells us that we are. We start to feel, oh, I should be doing that. Or, we get stressed out and we can feel it in our bodies when we go off. And everybody's different. For some, the heart starts pounding. For some, they get butterflies in their stomachs or dry mouth, or everyone has the alarm system. Like, that's what's so magical about our system, both in our psyche and in our bodies, is that we have a built-in alarm system. It already tells us when we're off. I'll be working and just I could feel I'm getting some tension. And it's like, oh, I'm not breathing. So I just like stop and then I just take a deep breath. It's like, okay, I'm good now. So the more we can just do those little check-ins throughout the day and not wait till I go for that run or that I hit the gym or, I go to my therapist, and I could be able to do that in my moments in the day. Just, it doesn't take much time to do that. And we're in a world right now where we need to find our stillness.
Yeah, definitely checking in on ourselves and that dissonance, you can feel it.
Oh,
And a lot of times we've been trained to kind of push through it and keep doing whatever it is we're supposed to be doing. Sometimes we do have to check in though and say, wait a minute, maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. And maybe that's what's causing this friction or this feeling. And
yeah.
how would you say that, or do you have any guidance you can give people to help them find out when it is a mismatch of what they're doing, or when it's just they need a break, or the differences between the two?
Yeah. So that's where wisdom comes in. So when we're in our sun, in that state, we have access to wisdom, and that wisdom is coming from energy, so from our power source. And everyone looks at the energy source from different perspectives. For some, it's experiencing God. It's a higher intelligence. It's the creator. So everyone has a way of understanding that higher intelligence that we have access to all the time. And so the more we know how to tap into that, the less bothered we become with the outside world.
Definitely, definitely. Tapping in is very important.
Yeah.
It's when we try to do it all on our own, I think, is that it gets really cloudy and really confused. So,
Mm,
what about anxiety? How would you deal with that emotion or other difficult emotions?
yeah. Well, that's a lot of thinking going on. Yeah, so if we could just see that we live on this continuum of mental health, and so if you're, for this far end, we're very unconscious to the point where people are violent, or they will never ever take accountability for their actions or their behaviors, and it's always somebody else's fault. So they're always pointing the finger. So that's one end of the continuum. At this other end is enlightenment. So, we've heard of people in this lifetime where they've been very enlightened and very tapped in, and just lived with such presence in the world and shared such a high state of love and beauty. And so we know what's possible for the human mind. And yet, you know, we're kind of in the middle, you know, where sometimes we go down, sometimes we're up. So, you know, we do this dance. And but as soon as we have an insight from within, we shift further up the scale. So, for an example, somebody who actually, I spoke with a woman, I did some work with eating disorders, and one woman was saying, you know, she had an eating disorder for, I don't know, 10 to 12 years. It was quite some time. And I said, what changed? Because she goes, yeah, you know, everybody was trying to fix me, you know, the doctors, my family, you know, on and on, all of these services. And she goes, it was like a light switch went on in my head, and she knew. So we could see that in, you know, alcohol. We could see that with drugs. We could see that in any kind of thing that grips us. It's a cigarette smoking. My mom, you know, she was very clear. She was going to stop smoking at this age, and that's exactly what she did. And so, you know, it was like she had it already in her that she knew that that was going to happen and she was going to make it work, even though she had been smoking since she was a teenager, you know. And so we forget that we have this amazing operating system within us to shift our lives.
Nice. Yeah,
And
that's
yeah,
oh,
and
good.
so I just want the other comment you made about happiness, and when I say feel your emotions, I the way I picture that is like waves in an ocean. You know, I cannot stop those waves from coming in. Like I just can't, right? So any thoughts that are coming, like I just can't stop them, right? So, but I can let them move through me. You know, I can let them move. So people that talk about trauma, it's like something got locked into the system. And so anytime, let's say, somebody yelled at me as a child all the time. So in my adulthood, if somebody yells at me, I get triggered because of that old memory. So, but with this understanding, I might feel that trigger and then I'll let it go. You know, it's triggered, let it go. Whereas other times we just hold on, and it's, you know, it just causes havoc on the system.
Yeah, that's a very good way to describe it for sure. The difference between holding on to that feeling
Yeah.
versus letting it flow through you. So, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
once you learn how to let them flow through you, it's a whole nother experience. And you can hold on to the ones that you want to hold on to, like
Yeah.
happiness and joy and peace. And,
So true.
like you're saying, when you're watching that sunset, you have that feeling, and being able to take that feeling from watching that sunset and have it while you're sitting at the dinner table. Have
Yeah.
it while you're taking a shower, just be able to bring back and hold on to that same
Yeah.
feeling. That's what I think is really amazing about the operating system.
Yeah.
Um, they
Yeah.
do
It's
have so
beautiful.
much control.
Yeah.
I think we
And
discount how much we have.
we do. And we don't understand the operating system, right? So if we don't understand it, it's hard to know how to work with it. So I look at working with our mental life like breathing, because breath, you know, we all breathe, we all do it moment to moment. I mean, if we're not breathing, there's a problem, right? And so, but are we maximizing our breath? Are we on a day-to-day basis really understanding how breath really works in our system and the power that's really behind it? And if I didn't do yoga or, you know, do listen to people that do breath work, it's like, oh, I didn't see it that way. You know, I've tried different breath techniques, and it's like, you know, this breath technique, I can exhale and hold for 90 seconds. And this breath technique, I'm lucky if I get 15 seconds in. Complete, you know, it's like, oh, that, you know, my system is so amazingly designed that it's like, that can happen. It's like, wow, that's wild. So the same with our psyche. but we're not exploring the depths of it, so that we can live in more harmony, in our lives, in our day to day. And that's why the industry is getting to a $6 trillion industry.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
quite a number.
it is a number, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. And all of your experiences with working with people and learning more about our operating system and how everything works, what's been like for you the juiciest, most interesting little nugget that you hold on to? Like, oh, I'm so glad I learned this one thing. Like, if you could share that with others.
Well, learning something keeps me in my intellect. And
Mm,
so I remember seeing Sid Banks speak one day, and I'm always good at asking questions. But he was such a gentle, calm man, and he just kept so true to these 3 points. And there was nothing I could ask that didn't come back to that. And after that session, I just felt full. Like I just felt, wow, this is like, talk about an amazing feeling. Like, I know you have children, so when you've had that birth and you met that baby for the first time, it's like this love just comes out. It's like, whoa. And that's kind of how I felt. It was like, wow, this is amazing that we could get to this capacity of feeling gratefulness and love, and yeah, like we're just starting to tap into all of that. And it takes it takes time to shift from the outside in, to start living inside out, and having faith, having deep, deep faith in your son.
mm,
Because if I get angry, or if I'm getting cloudy with, anxiety or whatever, all those emotions we talked about earlier, if I have such a deep core faith of who I am and my ability to experience ease and flow and peace, then I don't worry about those emotions, because they're just clouds, and they're always moving.
mm. Yeah, so it sounds like it was the whole experience for you, just really being able to embody and understand what was happening and who you really are and the sun inside and being able to envelop that and experience that was just, that was the juicy part. That's the
It
part that
is,
you
yeah,
love.
and it's being really ready to listen. So I have
Mm,
a story about that. Uh, when my daughters were young, 3 and 5, I found that I had a calcification in my cerebellum. So they weren't sure if it was a tumor or not. And so the day I found out, when I came home, it was like just life started to feel surreal. Like I just, trying to absorb this information, and what did that mean? And so after dinner, I went out for a walk by myself, and I prayed to God. It's like, I need a miracle. Like there's nothing I can do to fix this. And I came home, and when I went upstairs, my daughter was playing in her playroom, and she was, fitting around, and I'm going, oh, she was telling herself a story, and I said, oh, what's your story about? She goes, oh, it's about miracles. I went, oh, I just asked for a miracle, and now my daughter's speaking of it, and we've never talked about miracles in our home, so I don't know where that word came for her. And I said, oh, how do you, what is that? She goes, oh, it's when God gives you a surprise. It's like, oh, It was just, I kind of had to end that conversation because I could feel my emotions just rising. And so at bedtime, I went to her and she's again playing with her little toys. And so I sat on her bed and I said, when you said, miracles is when God gives you a surprise. And I said, how do you get one of those? And she just took her little hands and just put them up. She goes, it's when you open your mind to God. And in that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. And it's a long time ago that this happened, but I always tear up at it because there's an innocence, there's a purity in that wisdom that if I was so stuck in my head and busy minded, I would have missed all of that.
Yes, yes. Children are such a blessing.
They are. Well, and that's
Yes.
an interesting point too, because they're not bogged down by a personal thinking mind. So when I
Mm.
look at thought, I then put it in two different ways. We have one thought that is our left brain, and it's our data bank. And that's where we put all our information in, all our memories, all our hurts and pains and whatever. But it's also good because it allows us to function in the world. But then we have the other side of our brain, which is the right side, which is free flow. And that's the part that's creative, that's tapped into higher energies. So when we start to see, when we can see how we use our brain, then we can get into the power of the mind. And the power of the mind is not the physical brain, it's a deeper meaning.
Yeah, the power of the mind. And as you were talking about that and also bringing up children earlier, it was making me think because a lot of our audience is moms. That's who I work with. Is as we're going through life, of course, and trying to take care of ourselves and our own mental well-being, and that we're also entitled, well, entrusted, I guess you'd say, with taking care of these little ones and their mental well-being. So, do you have any tips on how moms can not get in the way?
Oh, for sure. One of my favorite topics. Well, we have such a role to play in that in so many ways, and it is not taught, it is role modeled. And the more we can tap into our true essence of who we are and grounded in who we are, then we naturally see that in our children. Because what happens is that we get stuck in behavior. They're acting out, they're doing this, they're doing that. But it's like, okay, well, where does behavior come from? Well, they have a feeling, and then the feeling has come from a thought. So that's where you got to start from, is really looking at, well, gee, they're really acting out. I wonder what's going on for them in their thinking, because they wouldn't have had that behavior if they didn't have that thought. And so that's what I deal with first, and it's really looking at their innocence. And that's the beauty of this understanding is we're all innocent at the core. And yet we let our thinking take us on a ride. And then for some people that ride takes them into behaviors that are not acceptable or not good ones, and so, or healthy ones. And so that's where the more we can recognize their innocence, recognize that they're struggling in their personal thinking mind first, then address the behavior, that would be important. So, I mean, I remember one time my daughter was Friday, just home from work, and one daughter's acting out, and it was like I was, we're in this like tug of war kind of thing, and it was like I finally recognized that my mood was dropping. That was me. That's on me. That's not on my daughter. That's on me. My mood's dropping. So I thought, okay, time to make dinner, get a cup of tea, just sort of chill out a little bit. And then I went back to her and I said, how can I help you tonight? You're really out of sorts. And it came from a place of pure love for her, not something I had to think up. It was like, oh, I just really felt for her because that's not her way of living most days. And so something was up for her. So the more as moms we put our oxygen mask on first, we do it on the plane, we have to do it in our lives. And so I do recommend that the more we protect our own state of well-being all the time first, then that supports our families, that supports our work, supports our relationships.
Yeah, definitely. I like to call it generational health. It starts with us and it
Oh,
passes down. Everybody talks about generational wealth, but they forget about the health
yeah,
part, that they're
totally.
modeling what we're doing and our
Yeah,
mannerisms, they're monitoring how we're eating, how we're moving. They're they're just little mimics
they
for the
are.
most part. They have
Yeah,
their own individual things, but a lot of what they do comes from watching. It's very
yeah.
interesting. Very
And
interesting.
they're good teachers for us as well, because you get a child and it grows and it acts a certain way, and it's like, oh, I don't know what to do with that, and then you figure it out, and then they grow some more, and then, oh, I got to figure it out, so we're always a little bit behind them in figuring out how to take this feeling, this a grounded feeling, and share it with our children, because they're now introducing another layer of testing your groundedness, if you will. Yeah.
I like that. Testing your groundedness. How grounded are you, moms?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another reason why those people that like to do like the morning practices of meditating and getting themselves ready for the day, especially when you're dealing with, a lot of other people, it really helps to, have that grounded thing. But you can do that at any time. You don't have to have a set 6 a.m. um, you know,
Yeah.
time to go into that. You can drop in, like you said, anywhere, anytime once you
That's
realize
such a
how to
great
do it.
point. Yeah, yeah, and so important. So if somebody does meditate or do breath work, whatever, or journaling, and they feel that comfort within, recognize that is your still point. And so when you go along your day and you're moving away from it, what is it you're going to do in the day? So if you're in the boardroom and you're moving away from that still point, then your meditation is not, you want to bring your meditation into your life, because that's the experience of truly living in full harmony in your life, is to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's a great segue for me to ask you, what does harmony mean to you, Quinn?
Alignment, grounded, and then it's beautiful.
Mm,
Like there's a beauty
yes,
to that.
I like a good musical song has great harmony, and it's beautiful indeed.
Yeah.
Um, and why do you think harmony matters? I know a lot of people talk about work-life balance, and for me, with my clients, instead of focusing on work-life balance, we look at finding harmony in your life. And I think that aligns very well with what you're saying about dropping in and feeling from that place within versus trying to do things externally, which I think balance would be more external.
Yes, balance is definitely external. Work and home and kids, and how do I juggle everything? And so harmony is just that inner stillness, while you're doing all of those things, and you'll naturally find balance because you have harmony within.
Yeah, yeah. Some of the best songs have great balance to the song. It's not all high notes, it's not all low notes. It's
Yeah, that's true.
a
Yeah.
mixture, and that's what
Oh, that's a
creates that
great
harmony.
metaphor. Yeah, I never thought
hmm
about music that way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
good. See there,
So,
that's a perfect example of insight for me. You said something and my mind went somewhere else. I went, oh, that is so great. Now I'm going to think about that and explore the meaning of what that means to me. But it came through you, that
mhm,
thought came through you, and now I'm opened up to some other possibilities of how to think about that.
Some new possibilities for synergy.
Yes.
And before we wrap up, I have one more question for you.
Okay.
What would you say used to be true for you, but isn't anymore?
Well, I'm still working on it. Because I think as a human, we have a tendency to live life from the outside in. And what happens is if you get into a disagreement with someone or something's not going the way you think it should go, there's a disconnect. And it's easy to think it's that's creating that feeling on the inside. And so I'm really trying to shift my life fully to living from the inside out. And, you know, if I was fully inside out, I would be enlightened. And I'm definitely not there. Not
Yeah, I
yet.
think that one's quite a journey. That's quite a journey, a
It
lofty
is.
journey, a fun one,
Yes.
definitely
Well, it
indeed.
is. When you make it part of your life,
Hmm.
instead of just staying in your head, do, it's like, okay, how can I be within that? And it just makes the day a little easier.
It does indeed. Like
Yeah.
that's why I love these podcasts. I get to just sit with someone and just hear their wisdom and their joy and their happiness and their expressions of life and what they've learned. And it's just one of my favorite parts of the day. So I really appreciate you for being here. And would you like to share anything with our guests of how they can reach you and things like that?
Yes, I have an inner advantage call. So if anyone wants to hop on a 30-minute call, it's a complimentary call, and it's just figuring out maybe a small reset that can just help you get over some hurdles that you might be facing right now. And I could share a little bit more about how the principles can help you with that.
Awesome, awesome. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate your time, and we'll make sure we put that link in the show notes so everyone can get in touch with you soon, Quinn.
That's so great. Thank you so much. It was a lovely
Awesome.
conversation.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Harmony Principle podcast.